Welcome to the third tier Business Excellence webinar. And this time we'll be looking at hiring for the long term with Alistair Gibb. He's the senior consultant at Cedar Associates and an expert on helping people be more effective in their roles. He's a facilitator, trainer, coach, but also he has experience as a farm manager. So he's very well placed to educate us on how to hire for the long term. We're also going to be joined by Johnny Kerr, the farm manager at Velcourt. He manages two farm businesses consisting of about 1,300 hectares of mainly arable land. And not only that, Johnny leads and manages Velcourt's management training scheme, which involves recruiting trainee managers and keeping the training scheme relevant.
We used to have something called a lunch hour, and it looks like now we've got a development lunch hour, which brings the hour back in. So let's kick on with it. Okay, so yeah, just to maybe outline briefly what we're going to sort of focus a bit into through the course of the time that we've got. Yeah, I think obviously key when you're recruiting and training staff is, it's how do you build that kind of positive reputation in the way that you recruit others. Whether you take them on or you don't take them on, word passes on fairly fast, when people get a bad experience when they're not, even when they're not recruited. So kind of fairly critical to do a good job, on that, because you just never know where you might cross paths or what word gets passed on. And I think too, when it comes to the recruitment process, it is a process. And I think the more structured and objective you can be in the process, the better quality decisions you're going to make. So hence defining roles and identifying the right person for that role. And I think too, the other thing is when we recruit is, what we want is people with the right attitude for the job. It's very easy. We could recruit somebody who we perceive to be, experienced and right for the job. But if they haven't got the right attitude, then that may mean their tenure is going to be a lot shorter potentially. And we'll just touch in briefly into, having gone through the effort of recruitment, the importance of inducting and, managing staff retention as well. So just as a quick overview in terms of some of the kind of key steps that, I would certainly consider when it comes to starting off that recruitment process and building that kind of reputation. Here are a few thoughts. So I think, firstly, it can be worthy of conducting some kind of exit interview. Now, it might not work with everybody, but when somebody's leaving, it's kind of useful to know what's leading to their departure, and more importantly, the value of it comes into exploring, well, given your time here, what's gone well or what have you valued? Are there some things that have frustrated you that maybe we could have handled or dealt with better? And that may give some insights into things that may help with future retention of staff. And, there's many genuine reasons that people leave, but, it may give additional sort of insights into some tweaks or changes that may be helpful. And also, even though somebody leaves, it's then about establishing, well, what requirement do we have to fill that position? Do we fill the same position? Do we reorganize who we've got? Does that create opportunities for existing staff to step up or take on other responsibilities, and we restructure things? So always good things to sort of review rather than just going straight into we need like for like. Most people will be familiar with writing a job description or have come across them. But what I would suggest is an even more critical part of that process is matching up the person to the job that you are looking to fill. And that's either defining sometimes it's called job criteria or person specification. Sometimes the two might be combined, the job description and person spec. And then having done that, we can then start to establish how to match candidates with job requirements. And we'll give you a little example of what that might look like. And from there, obviously, we can then start to look at where do we find people. And I think in today's world, a lot of that is via, for many people nowadays, is through some kind of online or social media kind of based kind of process. So, different mediums may work better for some than others in some cases. And then obviously we can interview. And I would suggest it's not just about interviewing and having a conversation with people. It's where can you test out some of the things that they say they can do? Well, can we give them the chance or the opportunity to prove that so that people aren't blagging their way through an interview and then it turns out that maybe all is not as it seems. And then from there we can evaluate and select. And I would say the hardest decision of all when it comes to recruitment is when you've gone through the whole process is to take the best of a bad bunch. If nobody meets your criteria, and this is important of being objective, then it's far better to rule out people if they don't meet those criteria and start again, because otherwise you're going to find yourself repeating the process, fairly shortly down the road, I suspect. And of course, there's a few other things, in addition to that list there around shortlisting, recruitment, negotiation, etc. So Johnny is with us, farm manager currently with Felcourt. And Johnny, given what I've just sort of described and listed there, how does that kind of sit with some of your approach within your business or across the company?
Yeah, that's pretty much what I try to do. It doesn't always pan out that way, but yeah, that's basically the process that I would follow.
Yeah. Okay. And in terms of when people do leave, what sort of things are you able to kind of draw out or maybe establish if somebody does leave the business? To what degree do you get some insights?
Yeah, so an exit interview is definitely something we would do with full-time staff, not with seasonal casual staff, unless of course they were leaving unexpectedly, sort of in the middle of the season, then maybe I would.
Yeah.
But yeah, exit interviews are good for just trying to establish what's caused them to go. And if you can if you can come to the conclusion that they've gone because they would perhaps the wrong fit or the job didn't suit them anymore, then fine. And if there's maybe something that's just not quite right within your business, then that's obviously something you need to address.
Yeah, definitely. And I think the other kind of really critical thing around recruitment is it does come at a cost. And I think fundamentally, when you look at the investment of time and developing people, etc., there is a cost attached to this. And I think it's interesting, how many people actually, attribute some kind of cost to the cost of recruitment over and above the things that you may consider. So, Linda, I think we might have a little poll for people just to sort of give us some insight into what they think the cost of recruitment might be.
We do indeed. So I will launch that now. If you can't see it, make sure you've got the chat open so you can participate. So the question is, what do you think the cost of recruitment is? So we'll see.
So take your pick as to where you would pitch it, or in your experience where you think it sits, and then we'll just get a quick overview on what that looks like.
We've got a few different answers coming in. 3-month salary, 10-month salary. Oh, it's changing. It looks like somewhere in between 3 and 10 months seems to be the general consensus.
Okay. Yeah. So, and I think there is a range. I think part of it is dependent on the what level of individual you might be recruiting into a business. Obviously, those that may be coming in at high level positions, some of the costs may be higher as a result. Johnny, have you got a view from your end on some of the costs?
Yeah, I tried to get a sort of really accurate answer for you, and I'm afraid I've failed. But what I have discovered is, I mean, we spend thousands on recruiting, but that's because we're a national farm management company. So I can't give you an accurate figure, but
that's okay. No, I'm not looking for the penny.
Yeah, it's a lot more than you think, and and it's not just monetary value. There's a lot of time. I spend a lot of time, especially in the winter. I put a lot of time into it, and that's just me as a farm manager for this business. That's not Felcourt. That's simply me.
Yeah. Okay, and yeah, there is a range out there. Different organisations and businesses report different costs, and yeah, I think the range that those that are on the webinar here have highlighted is not uncommon. I have also heard of up to 18 months salary in some cases, and I think, as you've highlighted, Johnny, it's not unusual. There's a lot of other add-on management time that goes into this whole process beforehand and afterwards that can start to stack up. So I think that highlights how critical the investment of time is to try and get this right as we do so. So let's have a little look at maybe an example of a job description, which is often can be a common place for some people to start to establish really what are the kind of responsibilities that we require to kind of fulfill the job, or what are the key aspects of the job that we're looking to kind of fulfill here. And yeah, Johnny, you kindly supplied some of the key things from your perspective about you know, a fairly typical job description. I know this isn't all of the things that you might include here, but just with the space we've got, you know, for an arable operator, general farm worker, and as you can see, there's some of the key responsibilities listed here. And yeah, given what we've got here, Johnny, for you, what's from your perspective, what are the kind of key things that are so important here, you know, when you start looking at a job description?
Yeah, so if I was recruiting for a full-time vacancy on the farm, then it's kind of what we were talking about earlier in terms of exit interview, and then just checking that what you want, who you want to recruit, is pretty much a carbon copy of the guy that just left, sort of. If not, then make some changes. But so if I start receiving CVs, then yeah, it's the kind of top of the list is that a sprayer operator, and in which case they've got to have PA 1 and 2, and they've got to have some spraying experience. Otherwise, just don't even, you know, don't bother going any further, sort of thing. So if it was combine driver, likewise, they've got to have some, you know, combine experience. For the harvest type of recruiting that I've just finished, the process I've just finished for the summer casuals, then the top of the list for me is forklift ticket, loader ticket, and also experience of that, and then also experience of driving and operating tractors. So those are the kind of top of the list. I quickly look through a CV, and if it's not there, then the CV basically goes in the bin, I'm afraid. So those are kind of like the really, really crucial things. And then if people kind of tick the boxes that are really crucial, then I'll try and glean from their CV if they're the sort of person that I want in the team, and in which case, if they are, then I'll invite them to an interview. And if in doubt, I'll invite them to interview. I'll give them the benefit of the doubt.
Right. Yeah, and I think it is hard finding people these days. So I think you know, if it gives an opportunity, it varies as to how people kind of apply or put things across, and it can be difficult to make certain judgments until you get face to face or can have a kind of conversation with people too. And I think generally job descriptions lay out what are people going to be responsible for in a job, and who will they be kind of responsible to, and that's what the most typical job descriptions look like. But I think in addition to this, the thing that adds and makes the ability to recruit people more procedural and more objective is to also kind of consider what sort of person are you looking for to fulfill the job description here. And those who may have been as kids may remember these blocks, or for those who are parents of young children, you may have invested in this little kit to entertain them. And really, it's about how do we put the kind of square peg through the square hole, the round peg through the round hole, etc. And this is where the job the person specification or the job criteria part of the process kicks in. Is how do we match the person to the job description? And that's what I'd like to just share with you next as an example of how you might set that up and how that might be structured. So linking into Johnny's example of his job description, we then just kind of broke down into, well, so what are the kind of key criteria that this person needs to have or to fulfill, you know, to sort of fulfill this job that's been described. And as you can see on the left-hand side, we've got a number of different criteria there that would be kind of critical for an arable operator, general farm worker, and in the job description Johnny described. Now, as you'll see in the middle here, what we've also identified is, so which are the essential criteria and which are the desirable criteria? Because what we want to sort of identify is what rules people in or out of going any further in the kind of recruitment and application process. So if we define something as essential, that they must have this, that's the essential stuff. If they don't meet the essential criteria, that's going to rule certain people out straight away. The desirable stuff is stuff that can be developed or trained, and you know, great if they have it, but if they don't, we can do something about that. So as you can see here, there's certainly some of the criteria have been defined as essential and others as kind of desirable. And you know, when you starting to look at people in this way, it helps you start to you know, set things up and be you know, very objective about what you're looking for and what you need to find out you know, from people. And yeah, Johnny, I don't know how something like this kind of works or kind of works for you and links to what you do.
Yeah, definitely. Something like this is really important, a checklist, if you like, because I've definitely been guilty of it in the past where I've invited someone to interview and kind of got to the point where I'm thinking, right, I'm going to offer them the job. And then thankfully that sort of niggling thing in the back of my mind is like, hang on a minute, you haven't checked if they've actually got a driving license. And you kind of think, yeah, good point. You know, the CV might say I've got experience of this, got experience of that, and they come across great at interview. You just think, wait, it's, you know, it's just due diligence of just going through a checklist. And yeah, thankfully they did have a driving license, but it didn't actually come, it didn't say it on their CV, and I didn't ask at interview, and I was, you know, really cross with myself. So have a checklist like this with what's essential and what's desirable. Yes, definitely. And I think what's interesting is that, you know, what's essential on this list are some of the human elements. It's not necessarily physical license to drive or license to operate various machines. It's you know, sense of humor, team player, attention to detail. That's not something you can say, here, I've got a certificate that says I've got a sense of humor. That's something you have to glean. You can glean from reading a CV, but you can much easily get it from an interview or a phone call or something like that. And I don't mean by sense of humor, I'm not looking for people who crack jokes all the time and are going to be really great laugh in the pub. I'm talking about the human ability to be able to have that humility and to be able to think when someone's made a mistake that they don't get, you know, we all perhaps get frustrated, but they have the sense of humor to be able to hold their hands up and admit they've made a mistake, or to hold their hands up before anything's happened and said, I'm just going to say that, you know, I'm not particularly good at whatever this is. Then that's great, that's fine. And as a team, and, you know, team player, there's another thing on the list. You know, we are a team, and if somebody's got, and we've all got weaknesses, but if we know what those weaknesses are because people have a sense of humor and are willing to talk about their weakness, then we can deal with it.
Yeah. No, and I think I think what you've highlighted is so important, and what we're looking at in these person specifications is what are the key attributes that we need from the person and what we're looking for, so that we can match those up and check those off. And I think when you develop a person spec, you know, you can certainly include, if there's qualifications you're looking for, some of these personal attributes that you've just been highlighting, Johnny, are so important. Some of the skills, some of the potential experience you might like. So you've got quite a bit of scope to sort of nail those down and then define what's essential, what's desirable as you kind of work through that. And there are some resources, and there's certainly a template to develop a person spec or the job criteria, you know, for your own businesses. that you can use and set up with respect to what you might be looking for, in a particular individual that when you look to recruit. So not only that, it's then about how do we measure, and really this person spec is, to me, is the tool that drives the whole kind of recruitment process then, because once you've defined this, what you can do when you sort of look to attract people in the first place is from this person spec, you can take the essential criteria that you've listed and use that to develop how you're going to advertise. So whether that's on social media or whatever platforms you choose to use, you can pull out, here are the kind of essential things I'm looking for, incorporate that into how you're going to kind of advertise or attract somebody to that. It allows you to develop your key questions that you want to ask in relation to these criteria. So commonly, people might start off, well, tell me about your past experience. And that could go in any one direction. But here it allows you to get very specific about the things that you need to try and satisfy and find out about each individual candidate as to, do they have what I'm looking for or don't they have what I'm looking for? And that will kind of start to rule them in or rule them out. And then if you look at that third column, we can start to consider, well, in what different ways can we not just, interview, but test people, so to speak, so that we can see how are they stacking up against what they say they can or they can do, or what their kind of experience is. So as you can see there, interview is the actual interview process, and in some cases you may be doing a telephone interview or an online interview. You may then invite those that get through that onto a second interview, ideally face-to-face where you can. And you can, put them through, some testing processes. So, for example, using GPS, you could give somebody the actual GPS system, or take them to a tractor that's got one on, and see what their kind of skills are in actually setting it up if they say they've got the experience of doing so. So that'll be a way to kind of test along with questioning about how they've used it. References, by all means, in some cases, people are only obliged to tell you that they have how long they've worked at their place of work for. But, it's a small world out there. People get reputations, people kind of get to know a bit about who's who, and some people will be open to sort of sharing some of their experience that they've had with people who are moving jobs. So you just never know what you might find out when you make that call. Yeah, interesting about a team player, getting them to engage with the team, and whether you let them go and spend some time with the team, or get one of the team to maybe show them around sort of some aspects of the business. They might relax and share some other things that start to come to the fore that you can pick up on. And there may be things like licenses, certificates, things like that you might seek from them, just to prove that they have got what they say. And linking back to your experience, Johnny, of checking that they have actually got a license in the kind of first place.
Yeah. That's the team player thing. Quite an easy thing to do is drive around the farm with them. Either you yourself, if it's a small business and you're just a one-man band, or if you're a bigger business, perhaps get one of the guys in your team, one of the full-time guys, to drive around the farm with them, and just see if they do things like, when you get to a closed gate, do they hop out the truck and open the gate? It's tiny things like that that you just know if that person is a sort of can-do. They're thinking that there's something that needs to happen, and rather than just sitting here waiting, I'm going to show some initiative and sort it out.
Well, if we don't get out of the truck, go on, Linda. Sorry.
I was just going to say, so Johnny, when you've got an interviewee sort of out and about on the farm, do you then meet up with your team afterwards to sort of get a lowdown on what they thought of that individual and if they do fit in with the team?
Yeah, definitely, because I need to consider that I've perhaps just viewed them from one perspective, the guys would have looked at them and talked to them with a different perspective. So, and actually I've perhaps missed loads of stuff. So, and plus they're going to be working with these people. So
Yeah.
if I think they're great, but the guys think they're not great, then you know, there's perhaps get them back for a second interview just in case we've kind of gone about this the wrong way. So yeah, definitely get it. If you've got a team of lots of people and you're not just a one-man band, then get them to interact, even if it's just waiting in the workshop for 10 minutes whilst you I don't know, go back over their CV just, you know, before the interview starts. Just get them to wait in the workshop, and they don't even realize it. They hopefully relaxed and hopefully being themselves, but the guys in the workshop are still going to chat to them and perhaps say, oh, you wouldn't mind handing me that 13mm spanner, and see if they don't know what a 13mm spanner is, then then that's probably quite a good interview question.
Yeah.
Yeah. And yeah, so I guess as part of some of the criteria, do they get out the truck and open the gate? Essential or desirable?
Yeah, I'd say that's pretty essential, but then I don't know, like all these things, it's kind of case by case. You just maybe they were just thinking, I better not get out of the truck because I haven't been told to. I don't know. And then in which case maybe they're quite young and quite inexperienced, and you kind of think they just need teaching. That's the sort of attitude we're looking for.
True. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. No, it's an interesting one, but again, it highlights the challenge of making decisions. And whilst we do all of this stuff, you've got to tie it all together with all the other aspects that you kind of review and look at. And in addition to this, there may be other ways that you can test or test people to do things. So you can set up little scenarios. Some of the questions that you use as you develop questions from your person spec, you can start to get them to review different aspects of what they've done in the past, because what they've done in the past is a good indicator of how they're likely to behave in the future. So using what we call behavioral or competency-based type questions in the interview is really kind of important to get them to review and contribute to either their past experience, or you can create some scenarios and get them to feedback on how they would react to that. Or you can get them to do calculations, for example. So it could be, you know, how might you set up a fertilizer spreader and do some calculations around that if that's kind of part of the task. So you can get quite creative with this, because what we're looking for as much as possible is what we call primary evidence. So that's what can they actually do, and that's where the testing bit comes in. Secondary evidence is the feedback you get to the questions that you ask in an interview and what they're telling you. But it's how much you kind of probe that and draw them out in the process that you know, is helpful too. So yeah, don't just rely on questions. Anything that you can do to sort of create some things that will put them under a bit of pressure or test them, particularly when you get to a second interview, you know, goes a long way to sort of helping confirm what you're finding out from them, or whether they're trying to bluff their way through in some cases. Right, so person spec, and again, then what you can do as you evaluate and select people, and what I would suggest is, if you're seeing several candidates in a day, is at the end of each interview session, you can then evaluate the criteria that you are assessing, and you can score that, whether it's on a 1 to 5, or it doesn't have to be numerical. You can set other standards against it in terms of how well they can have responded to things. So that way, at least you can objectively evaluate how people have performed during the interview and the testing that you've done. So then, as you do each candidate before the next, then at the end you can evaluate all the candidates and look at how they've all scored up against your kind of essential and desirable criteria, and that should help start to confirm, you know, who's in the running, and or might be a clear runner here, or you may have a combination of a couple of people who you may be looking to offer the job to, or have potential to do so. And so it gives you objectivity all the way through. And of course, the other thing is, in today's world, some people will seek feedback if they are not successful. They'll want to know, well, why didn't I get the job? And when you've got this set up, it gives you clear criteria again to sort of let them know, well, maybe there were some essential criteria that they didn't quite meet or match at the end. And here's what they can work on when they go forward for future jobs or future applications. And that way, you're again providing them with a positive, objective, challenging sort of process that they've got to work through. And if they're successful, they're going to really feel that they've kind of achieved something, when they're offered a job in the process too. Yeah, Johnny, I don't know if there's anything else you want to add just before we move on from that.
Yeah, I think just going back to your point about references, I think we could, as an industry, we could be a lot better at that. And it works in a couple of ways. It works in your recruiting process if you phone the people they put on their CV as a reference and get a good understanding of what they're all about. But equally, I use it certainly for summer casuals. I'll use the reference as a motivational tool. So I say to them, look, guys, you're probably wanting to, go back to college and then have another job next summer on another farm somewhere. Well, I can help you do that by writing you a decent reference or something along those lines. So it's just trying to figure out what their short and medium term ambitions are. If they're just simply, I want to do a few summers working on a farm earning money and I finish university in a couple of years and I'm going to go and be an economist, it's like, oh, fine. But at least you can, you can sort of figure out what makes them tick and what motivates them and use it as a carrot to dangle in front of them. Indeed.
Yeah. Good. Okay. So I think just looking at the success of recruitment, here's some quick stats just to highlight some of the things that we've just been sort of reviewing here. And this was some information from the University of Kent a few years ago. And, trying to identify the success rate of recruitment. So as you can see, things like a bit of astrology or sometimes analysing people's handwriting used to be out there as well, aren't great methods of, success in recruitment. But when you combine referencing, there's certainly some information to be gained or confirmed from that. Now, when we talk about typical interviews, this would be where people ask, some standard and maybe some random questions. They're maybe not as structured in the approach as we've just sort of reviewed here in terms of defining the person and the job and then being clear about the essential and desirable criteria. So often it's a chat about, their past experience, how they've got on, and, it's much more kind of a general type process. But when we use structured interviews, which link out from the process we've just gone through in terms of preparing a person specification or clear job criteria for the job description, that bumps our success rate and decision making up much higher. And if you add in there things like some kind of aptitude tests or some kind of testing process, and also some businesses may bring in some kind of a personality or psychometric type profiling. And what those can do for those that choose to use them is it may confirm the findings that have come out of your interview process. It helps you maybe understand how the person might behave if they are working under pressure, what's the behavior you're more likely to see, what they're going to default to. It helps you maybe raise and ask further questions in relation to what comes out of the personality test. So you've got a better sense, not only from the interview, but from the test, what kind of personality you're likely to sort of recruit. And, so that can be helpful when you get into kind of second interview stage. What it also may do is if there are some alarm bells ringing or something niggling, that may also highlight what's leading to that kind of niggling thought at the back of your mind with somebody. So that's how some people sort of adopt and use them in kind of recruitment. What we would say is, don't just base your recruitment purely on the fact of how their personality sort of stacks up. Everybody's unique, everybody's different, but it's in combination with structured interviews and some testing and referencing. Those are the things that are going to give you and provide the best way to be objective in your decision making here. So don't know, Johnny, any other experience you'd like to add in here just from these numbers here?
Yeah, just what your last point really is any alarm bells or niggling things that it's, you know, we as human beings, we make judgments on people really, really quickly. Which is an evolutionary advantage from 10,000 years ago. Great, but when it comes to employing someone, it's worth just parking those initial judgments. It might be that they're correct, but just it's worth going through the process, and even like we were saying earlier, perhaps getting, if you've got other people in your team who can interview them, even if it's kind of subtly, then that gives you much more perspective. And then even a second interview, like a week later, it's, you can, you know, I've worked with people where your initial judgment was pretty negative, and actually that was quite wrong. Or actually, your initial judgment was quite right, but actually they're still really good at their job, and you might not necessarily get on with them brilliantly, but they're still very good at their job. So
Yeah, and I think there's something to be said for sort of personal biases as an employer, and I think you're right, having more than one person involved in this process has got to be really useful so that your own biases don't sort of take over. So I think some of these more structured ways to look at it, and then having more people surely has got to be a good thing.
Yeah. I think if you're just to use a historical example, I expect if you met Neil Armstrong, you might have thought he was a bit of a weirdo, but then turned out he was actually a pretty good astronaut.
So, and true, and I think the key thing here is the subjective bit that everybody will experience when it comes to recruitment is the first impressions and those first few minutes when you meet somebody, you've already made a judgment about them, whether you think you have or you haven't. And the challenge is to step back from that and start to work objectively, which is from your person or job criteria spec. Once you get to the end of it, then by all means connect back into possibly that subjective judgment that you made earlier, and how does that sit alongside the objective questioning and other things that you've uncovered with the individual as they have maybe started to relax or get on with the interview and the testing process? Because people will be in some cases nervous, apprehensive, uncertain about what to expect, and everybody has different experiences. So I think what got to do is give people the benefit of the doubt, see how they stack up objectively, so that we've got clear criteria to assess and evaluate against. But it doesn't take away at the end of the day. It's also, how does it feel? So it's kind of head and heart here, rather than just going with your heart in the decision making. Okay, so let's sort of move on from there. And I think once you have made the appointment, obviously, and one of the questions that's come up here was in the chat there was about making sure that you're paying enough. So yes, you definitely want to be competitive. It's a big war for talent out there, as they say, and everybody's looking for people, looking for good people, and struggling in not just your sector, but lots of other sectors as well. So, working on competing in that marketplace is kind of key if you're going to try and attract goods and the best people in the kind of process. So if you are able to sort of appoint somebody at that point and they accept, great. But in today's world, you've got to move pretty quickly too. And I think what I hear more commonly is people don't accept a job and you think you've got them in the bag, and next minute they come back and say, I've accepted another one instead. So it's a tough market out there in terms of, not only hooking people in, but landing them as well in the kind of process and getting them started. Which then I think really leads to the next kind of stage of the process, having invested this time and effort in finding and recruiting the right person, it's then about how we settle them in and get them on board. And I think the kind of key thing is whatever experience people come with, it may be different from how you operate and the way that you do things. So there will be some sort of development of some description for them to get on board, understand how you do things, what you expect, how you operate. And a good sort of induction process that's, again, got some structure to it, can help you induct people and start to get them up to speed, faster. And that can save you time and ultimately cost in the kind of process. So if you just leave things to chance, once you've recruited somebody, they're going to arrive with some mixed emotions. There's usually positive and negative emotions that people start any new job with. What we want to do is harness those positive emotions and minimize the negative ones. And that's the kind of key to a kind of positive and good kind of structured induction process. Johnny, how's it going to work when it comes to kind of inducting staff into your business? And I know you've just gone through some recruitment recently to get your kind of summer casuals lined up too.
Yeah. So before they start, I try to kind of drip feed them with a bit of information about the farm, so that, say, if you've got somebody starting in 3 months' time, I mean, it might be you've got someone starting tomorrow, in which case you can't do this. But if they're starting in 3 months' time, you could send them a fact sheet about the farm, just so that they kind of, on the day one, they know how big the farm is, what sort of enterprises you're doing, which you may have done even before the interview. Then by the time they arrive on day one, the other thing, I guess, is to kind of tell them what's going to happen on day one. And what we do is very much a whole day of induction, which is mainly for health and safety reasons, but it's also so that they know where they're going, and they know what the process is for tipping grain in the grain store, or what the process is for whatever it is that your business does. So it's a whole day, and it might be that there's 2 or 3 people starting in. So, for example, in the summer, I'll have 3 harvest casuals. So it might be that I do all 3 on one day. Sometimes I stagger it so that I can just concentrate. It's just one guy on Monday, then the next guy on Wednesday, and the next guy on, say, Thursday or Friday. But yeah, it's definitely a case of going through a checklist of, getting photocopies of their driver's license and their forklift ticket and their PA1, PA2, whatever else. Even if you need them to do work on a chainsaw, getting the copy of their chainsaw cross-cutting certificate. There's all that sort of admin, P45s, going through all the admin for pay, but then very much going through health and safety policy and reporting of accidents and near misses. Maybe paint the picture of a typical scenario that they're likely to face, where, should such and such happen, make sure this is make sure you follow the correct process and you report it properly. And then it's definitely get it. I mean, I try not to spend too much time sitting in the office, but it's got to be done. And then it's a case of getting out into the workshop and into the yard and generally around the whole farm, and giving them a set of maps so that they can, study, and even, again, send that to them a month before they start. And then going around the workshops, showing them where things are, but critically where the fire extinguishers are, where the emergency stop for the angle grinder, blah, 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 whatever it might be. Then going around the yard so that they're familiar with where things are kept and how they're kept. These are the standards that we stick to, where things are parked in their correct places, tools are hung up on the wall in the workshop and not just abandoned on the floor. It's all that sort of thing. So it's first and foremost health and safety induction, but it's also more layering on top of the health and safety. It's about how we operate, where things are kept, the processes and procedures that we adhere to, and that sort of thing, so that on day 2, and again, it doesn't just stop there. It's not like, right, day 2, off we go. It's kind of day 2, we can kind of just ease them in with some sort of work. I try and do it so that they're working with another member of staff. So on day 2, they're kind of having their hand held a little bit, and you're just kind of pushing them on just as the days go by, so that by the time, this is what we do with harvest casuals, by the time we get to getting the combine out, they've already been on the farm for at least a week, preferably 2.
Good.
And they know where the fields are. They know generally the kind of foundation ethos of how we operate and how we do things. And they've got people's phone numbers. They know where everything is kept, and they know what we're all about, so that when it gets busy, they've been brought up to that level.
Right. No, and I think it's great to hear. I think, just giving people paying an extra week or two's wages is well worth it, just to get people bedded in, settled down in the flow of things. Because sometimes I hear businesses taking people on very close, and then it's the pressure's already on, and the last thing you want is people under pressure who are uncertain about things or unsure about things.
Yeah, I do. I look at the sometimes I think, oh, maybe I'll get them to start just a week later, and I'll save, if I'm paying them £10 an hour and they're doing a 39-hour basic week, they'll save 390 quid. And I just think, if they're working for me the whole summer, they're probably going to earn, somewhere in the region of 8 grand. I just think I'll have them for the extra week.
Yeah, definitely well worth it. Yeah, good. And in terms of just your full-time staff and for the experience of those that you take on in the summer there, what sort of things lead on from once you've got people inducted, settled in, and working well? What else do you do that helps you retain staff and get them engaged in the business?
I think it's all about that human element again, that sort of sense of humor thing. Like for me, as a manager and as a leader of people, I need to know what their motivations are. So if they want to be on the farm forever and ever and ever, and they want to drive the sprayer and the combine and all these things, that's good, as long as you understand that's their ambition. Maybe, and we're seeing this more now with the younger generations, they want to do something for a year or 2 and then they want to move on. So it's just a case of understanding what they're getting out of bed for and what they're driven by, and providing them with that. But again, you've got to there's some carrot and some stick involved as well. So you need to be kind of, and you've got to have those conversations with them. Just say, look, I know you want to drive the sprayer, and that will happen one day. You're not the sprayer operator. We already have one of those. But I know you want to kind of gain the experience to learn how to drive the sprayer. So, here's a deal. And you kind of lay it out where you just say, look, how about in the next 3 or 4 weeks, do this, do that. And if you can prove to me that you're responsible and capable, and you take criticism, or you learn quickly, or all those sorts of things, then we can think about maybe putting you on the passenger seat with the sprayer operator, and learning, going from there. So it's knowing about where people want to be and where they want to go. They're not just no one likes to be a mushroom.
No, indeed.
They're kept in the dark. They want to know what's going on and what's in it for them.
Good. No, I think that all makes great sense there. And all of those expose people to experiences, and who knows, it's who might come back in the future then if they've had a good experience, however long they are in the business. Right, I think we've got a minute or 2 left, Linda. Shall we tackle a couple of questions there in the time we got?
Let's tackle a couple of questions. Yeah, so I know we sort of ended up starting a little bit late due to some tech issues, but I think it's worthwhile. Just there's been a couple of really good questions that I think are worth answering. So the first one is just, how can we cope with the long hours that are needed in our sector? We ideally need shift work for seasonal busy times, but there just isn't enough sufficiently skilled staff. So I don't know if you have any tips on that.
Johnny, do you want to go first?
Yeah, I'm sort of picking this up generally. That question's a really good one, and I'm kind of picking that up generally from the younger generations. I think it's a really interesting challenge that we have as an industry, and it's not just agriculture; it's the whole economy. Gen Z, Generation Z, the guys that the young people that we're recruiting now are very different to Gen X. And you've got Gen Y, which includes me, the millennials, the ghastly millennials in between. And there's quite a difference between X, Y, and Z, definitely. So long hours, you know, maybe you just think, well, fine, if you're not willing to do the long hours, then go and look somewhere else. You can do that if you've got people queuing up to work for you. If you don't have people queuing up to work for you, it's an interesting challenge. Part of me thinks, you know, can we be cleverer instead of just having one guy doing 16 hours in the busy times of year? Can we somehow recruit and have two guys? There's still 16 hours of work is done, but it's done by two people. Yes, there are disadvantages to that in that you may lose some efficiency in a handover, or you may lose quality because one guy's going to be better than the other. But I think we can be a bit more imaginative. But, you know, again, like I said, you need people queuing up to work for you, not just your business, but the whole industry. I don't know how we solve that one, but we need to kind of somehow incentivize or make it really attractive so that we have people queuing up to work for us. And then, maybe you can, I mean, we would on a shift work, maybe a dairy is much more like that, big dairy anyway. You'd have lots of people just doing an 8-hour or a 10-hour shift. Maybe the arable side needs to think about that.
And that might be a way to actually attract more people, you know, if 16 hours is putting them off, but actually if it feels a more reasonable time frame, and coupled with the comment there about right pay, you know, maybe that we will see that shift. And
I kind of feel we could be a bit more imaginative when it comes to their remuneration and including their leave. So if people are paying over, like, we're still kind of fairly old fashioned, I think, when we just pay people a 39-hour basic week and then a rate for overtime over that. So if they work 100 hours, they get paid loads for the overtime. But maybe we could be a bit more imaginative and kind of say that, you know, if you work every hour you work beyond 39 hours, we'll kind of give you that hour back somehow. And then therefore, guys, certainly when I was in the army before my agricultural career, that was kind of a really good incentive. If blokes were told, you know, work hard, we've got 2 or 3 weeks of something to do, and then you're all going to get an extra week's leave. And that's seriously rewarding. If you say, look, guys, if for every hour you work overtime, we'll give you that hour back, or we'll give you half an hour back, or something like that. I don't know. Then you some people are going to work seriously hard in the busy time of year because they know that they're going to get 3 or 4 weeks off in the winter where they can go skiing, or they can go shooting, or they can go fishing, or whatever it is what they want to do.
Yeah, perfect. And just one other question before we go is just around, as an employer, should you be prioritizing empathy, or I guess behavior, over experience when you're conducting job interviews? Sort of which is the more important element?
I'll let you go first again on that, Johnny.
Okay. I've talked about it a couple of times on this webinar. The kind of human qualities for me are seriously important. So yes, I need people with experience to do whatever it is I'm asking them to do. But that's why I like getting people face to face in for an interview, because you can figure out if there's some chemistry there. If you can, and I guess that's just a human thing, isn't it? It's quite weird. Some people we connect to and some people we don't. And if somebody has lots of experience and we don't necessarily connect that well, okay. But on the other side, if someone's got little experience, they've just about got that minimum experience that you want, but you just connect and you just think this guy is positive and he's gonna, or she is going to take on board the feedback that I give them and learn and train. And I kind of, you just get that feeling. You just think, I know this person's a bit green, but I reckon within a couple of weeks I'll have them shipshape.
You can mold them to the way you want them to be.
So it is. So attitude is massive. It's that human, people's ability to empathy is a really big one. If they can empathize with me, they can see what I'm getting stressed about, then they can hopefully they can plug into what that is and use their initiative. It's like the interview with it. Do they jump out and open the gate? It's
Yeah.
exactly that. Do they empathize with me and just think, I've gone ahead and done this because I know that was weighing on your mind? Thank you.
Yeah. And I think just to finish that off, when you're working with other people, empathy makes all the difference. I would say it's definitely a desirable trait that you look for in people, because I think their ability to relate to other people, be able to step into somebody else's shoes is key to success. And whilst we've got AI and technology and all the rest of it out there, the one thing that AI and technology doesn't have is empathy.
Yeah.
Bottom line.
True. Very true. Right. Well, we are out of time. So I thank you both so much for today and for all this insight. I think we've all learned a lot that we can generally put into practice now when we're looking at our recruitment and retention processes. And, you know, the individual stories and examples are really helpful. So for those of you who are listening and who are TIAH members, we've got a recruitment toolkit with all sorts of useful guides and templates for you to download, and including job advert templates, recommended structure for job interviews, recruitment interview questions, as I say, candidate shortlisting checklist, induction checklist, all sorts of really useful stuff, as well as a recording of this webinar. So if you're not a member, please do go onto our website and sign up for that. And that's all we have time for. So thanks again, and have a good day.
Yeah, pleasure. Thank you. Thanks all for joining as well.